Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Chris Whiteman, and thanks for joining me for another jazz guitar lesson. Today we're going to look at turning arpeggios into lines. Arpeggios are a great structural foundation for improvising over changes and accurately expressing the harmony. But a lot of people get stuck. They've learned their arpeggios, but they really don't know how to integrate them or utilize them while improvising. So I want to share with you an approach you can use to turn arpeggios into harmonic-specific lines that can be used in your improv. This will be a simple three-step process. One, we have to learn the arpeggio and really build some muscle memory and reflexing of that arpeggio so that we can execute it fluidly. Two, we're going to do what I call front-loading the arpeggio, which is adding a material preceding the arpeggio, and this is going to act to disguise the arpeggio. And three, we're going to add melodic content at the end of the arpeggio. This is also going to help disguise the arpeggio as well as add an element to really help the musicality of the phrase. Before we start, we have to identify the harmony and pick a voicing. So here we're going to be talking about C major 7. And I want to find a voicing on the neck that I know and I feel comfortable with and I see clearly. So I'm going to choose C major 7. This is going to drop 3, C major 7 on the 8th fret. I have C is my root, B is my major 7, E is my 3rd, and G is my 5th. And so once I've chosen a position here, then I want to start to build out the arpeggio. And this is going to be C major 7, C, E, G, B. It's my root, my 3rd, my 5th, my major 7. Then we're going to repeat in the 2nd octave. So I'm back to C, my root, E, my 3rd, G is my 5th, and B is my major 7. Finish up on C, and then I'll turn around and come backwards. Maybe I play my chord again. I really want to see this relationship between the chord and the arpeggio. All right, so here we have our arpeggio. One of the things I like to do is I like to slide into that major 7 in the 2nd octave. So something very simple, right? Just a slight little glissando into that. So that's going to be something that I consistently do in all the exercises. I'm going to slide into that major 7, just because I really like the sound of it. And already it's bringing that arpeggio starting to come to life. Okay, so after we have fluidity with the C major 7 arpeggio in this position, we're going to move on to step 2, which is front-loading the arpeggio. And this is about adding some material prior to the arpeggio or preceding the arpeggio. And this can be as simple as one note. It could be a group of notes. It could be diatonic. It could be non-diatonic, chromatic. I'm going to give you some different examples. But this is really going to help obscure the fact that we're using an arpeggio. So the most basic, we're going to start with one note prior to the root of the arpeggio, and I'm going to start on the 7th, so a half step below the root. And if I'm adding material before the arpeggio, I have to start my phrase earlier. All of these phrases are 8th notes, so if I'm going to start early, I'm going to precede the arpeggio by 1/8 note. So I'm going to come in on the end of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do it a little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I front loaded a half step below, 1/8 note. We can go above, we can do the same thing from above. So now I'm going to start on the second or the ninth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I can also start a half step above. This is a non-diatonic tone, so it's not in the key. It's not a tone that we'd want to sit on, but because we're starting on an upbeat, it's not a strong beat, and we're moving very quickly into the arpeggio, it's going to be fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a little more colorful because it has a non-diatonic tone in there. Those were all examples of preceding the arpeggio by one note. So now I'm going to front load the arpeggio with 2 notes, and we're going to use combinations of the notes we just explored. But because I'm using 2 notes, I have to start the phrase even earlier. So now I have to start on the downbeat of beat 4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the 7th, move to the 9th, and then hit my target of the root of C. So 1, 2, 3. A little faster. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I'm going to flip that around and start above and go below. 1, 2, 3. So that was front loading with 2 notes. Now we're going to do it with 3 notes. So I have to start my phrase even earlier. So now I have 3/8 notes that have to happen before I get to the downbeat where I hit C. So now we're going to start the phrase on the end of 3. And this phrase is going to utilize all 3 pitches that we originally looked at, the B, the D, and the C sharp. And so what's going to happen is we're going to create what we call a chromatic enclosure. So I'm going to start below, I'm going to move above diatonically, and then I'm going to come in chromatically to the root. 1, 2, 3. A little faster. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to start above. I'm going to move down a half step, and then my enclosure. So I'm going to go below my target and then into my root. So D, D flat, B to C. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And that's my favorite one. I use that a lot. Okay, so we're going to take this phrase and we're going to move on to step 3, where we're going to look to add some melodic material at the end. So instead of just stopping on the major 7, I'm going to look for some type of lyrical statement to add on there. And what we're going to do is we're going to slide in that major 7th, and we're going to go up to the 9th, which is my D, and back into the major 7th. And I slide into that major 7th both times. So I can combine this with the last phrase that we just learned. And that's what we have. One more time. Okay, so we're going to explore some other melodic content on the top. So instead of, we're going to go, so I slid into the major 7th, to the 9th, to my root, and then back into the major seventh. And then one more time. Okay, I'm going to do another variation. Introduce some triplets. So I slid into the major seventh. I hammered on to the C sharp, and to the D. And then back to the major seventh. So I add that onto the end of the phrase. One more time. Okay, so we're going to do one more example where we take that last melodic phrase and we extend it. So we're going to do this. So the beginning is exactly the same. And then I'm going to come down the major 7 arpeggio, utilizing a triplet, slide into the major 7 in the lower octave to the 5th, and resolving into the 6th. And if we put it all together, and one more time. All right, thanks so much for joining me here. I hope you found this information useful and that you'll be able to integrate this into your own playing. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe if you want to keep up to date on all future content. There's a PDF of all the exercises in this lesson for my Patreon subscribers, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.